Welcome to DeadbearCode. I'm Sean Beyer, and in this video we're going to convert a traditional standing server Python FastAPI application into a serverless Lambda with AWS using API Gateway to handle routing all the requests to this Lambda proxy. To do this, we're going to be using a Python package called Mangum. It's pretty cool and it's really simple to set up. It only takes about 2 lines of code. And I'll be posting a link to the blog version of this video in the video description. So just in case I need to make any updates later, you can go follow that link and go to the blog post, which I'll be able to update over time. A couple of requirements for this is you need to have Python installed, virtualenv, and an AWS account. First things first, let's go ahead and set up our virtual environment using virtualenv. If you don't know what this is or how to install it on your computer, you can go ahead and watch this video here. I've also put a link in the description to that video. So now we're ready to set up FastAPI. So if you come over to the FastAPI site, you'll notice this tutorial user guide here. So we're just going to be referencing this. So if you go ahead and open that up and take a look, it's going to say install FastAPI. Adding this all flag is going to give it all the optional dependencies. And then we're also going to need Unicorn, which is going to be the server that's going to be running the actual application. So let's go ahead and pip install FastAPI all. Great. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and pip install Unicorn. Now, if we go back to the documentation, the next step is going to be to add our main.py file, and we're just going to copy this straight from here into our code editor project. Going to make a new file, call it main.py, and just go ahead and paste that in there. Then next, all we need to do is run unicorn main app -- reload, and that's going to start our FastAPI. And we can check to see if that's running in localhost, and you can see that it is now working. So if we go back to our code here, you'll see that we're importing FastAPI, creating the FastAPI instance, and then this is our route basically. So this is just the root/route, and it's just going to return this message hello world, which is, if you go into the browser, that's what we're doing here. Another way you can test to see if this is working is by checking the built-in Swagger documentation that FastAPI comes with. So if you add /docs at the end of the URL, you'll get this pre-built Swagger documentation. You can come here, see your route, you can try it out, hit execute, and you'll get the same thing. It'll just give you a little bit more information here. So let's go ahead and create another route to test this out and see if we can get that working as well. So over in our main.py, we're going to add another route, and we're going to call it /users. And this is just going to send back a similar message just saying get users. Go back to the Swagger docs, refresh the page. We'll see now we see our users route. You can try that one out as well. And that looks to be working great. So right now you can see we have a pretty basic app. Everything is in one file, and that isn't super realistic for production level applications. So what we want to do is go ahead and restructure our application so we can have it a little bit more organized and allow our app to scale as it grows in size and we add more complex business logic. So again, if we refer back to the FastAPI documentation, and I highly suggest you come check this out. It's pretty in-depth and thorough. They do a really good job, and it's kind of interesting because they'll walk you through this like whole tutorial of it. It's not just, super dry typical docs. So if you come back and you'll see over here, it'll say bigger applications, multiple files, and we're basically just going to go based off of the suggestions here in the documentation. So if I go back to our code, and we are going to create a app folder and move our main.py into the app folder, and we're also going to add a init.py. And what the init.py file does is it tells Python to treat these as a module that it can import from any of the other files in the projects. And you'll see kind of how this works in a little bit. Okay? And then inside the app, we're also going to create another directory and call it API. And then another directory inside of that, and we're going to call this API v1. And so this is just so if you have any other drastic changes, you can increment it up to v2. And then while still be able to maintain functionality for the previous versions. And then we're going to go ahead and add init.py files in both of those. And then inside the API v1, we're going to do one more directory, and we're going to call this endpoints. And then you guessed it, another init.py. Now inside of our endpoints file, we're going to create a users.py. And then we're going to move our users route into this file here. So there's a few other things we need to do in order to get this to work. So let's go ahead and set those up. The first one is to import the API router. So now instead of app, we're going to want to put router. And then we want to create another file called api.py. And we're going to add in this snippet here. And so this is where the modules come from. We're basically importing users as a module, and we're telling Python to look into the endpoints folder. And then we're telling FastAPI to include the users endpoints on the router, so that way we have access to them through the main.py file. And you'll notice this prefix and tags parameters here. The prefix is so that if we put the /users here, now when we go back to the users.py, we can just change this to just the /, and then any route we put in the users.py, it's going to automatically have the /users in front of it, followed by our new route. So in this case, router.get / is just /users. And then say we were to create a new route that we wanted users and we wanted to call it /new, then it would look like this /users /new. And so that just makes things a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to read and less code to write. Now the tags parameter, you'll see in a second when we look at the Swagger docs again, it'll show up there tagging all the routes that we have made on the users.py file. It looks like I accidentally put my api.py file in the endpoints folder, and I actually want it in my API directory. Now, since we updated our router, we need to go back to the main.py and update it here as well and have it include the router that we just created. We want to import the router, and so we're just going to go from the root of the application. So we want to go into the app folder, then go into the API folder, then the API v1, get the API, and then from the API file, we just want to import the router, and we're going to call it API router. Finally, we need to tell our FastAPI application to include our new router by adding an app.includeRouter, passing in the router, and then this prefix is going to just add /API/version1 onto the beginning of every route. And instead of main app, we're going to say app.main. And that looks like it's working. And now we have our users endpoint. Here's our tag users showing up here, and that looks like it's working. Great, now we have our FastAPI app set up. So the next thing is going to be converting it to a Lambda. So the first thing we need to do is install Mangum and then update our app to have a handler that the Lambda will be able to call. And in order to do this, we are going to come back to our terminal and we're going to run pip install Mangum. First, we want to import Mangum. So from Mangum, import Mangum M, and then we want to add our handler, and we are going to wrap the app in Mangum. And then let's just go ahead and double check that our application is still working locally and everything looks good. Now our FastAPI is ready to be invoked via Lambda, and so now we need to provision our AWS resources to be able to handle these requests. So the first thing we need to do is package our FastAPI Lambda into a zip file that we can upload to S3. The dependencies have to be accessible at the root level, and the Lambda is going to call this handler here. It's not going to know to look in env, then go into lib, Python 3.7 site packages to get all these dependencies, right? So when we package this zip file, we're going to want to take all the dependencies out and put them in the root of the directory of the zip file that we're creating. We're going to cd into the site packages folder, and then we're going to zip up everything in the site packages and put it back out into the root of our project. And to do that, we're going to run zip -r9 and then follow the path back to the root of our project. And now that's done. And then we're going to go ahead and go back to the root of our project. Now you'll see we have a function.zip. So now that we have the dependencies, we also need the rest of our application. So let's go ahead and zip up the rest of that and add it into the function.zip. And to do that, we're going to run zip -g, the path to the location of our zip file, -r, and app, which is the name of the folder in our project that we want to add to the zip file. Now that our Lambda function is packaged and ready to go, let's go ahead and go to S3 and we're going to click Create Bucket. And we're going to call this Serverless FastAPI. Go ahead and create it. Click on your new S3 bucket and click Upload. And we're going to go and add our zip file and click Upload. Sweet, that's ready to go. Next, we need to make our Lambda. So now let's go over to Lambda, which can be found under Compute and Lambda. And you'll see we don't have any Lambdas yet, so let's go ahead and we're going to create function. You want to take note that whatever region you're in, you create the API gateway and the Lambda in the same region. The S3 buckets are global, so you'll notice that if we go back to S3, instead of showing the region up here, it says global. So just for the Lambda and the API gateway, make sure that those are created in the same region. Let's go back to create function, and we're just going to author this one from scratch and call it Serverless FastAPI Lambda. And we want this Python 3.7. And this will default to create a new role with basic Lambda permissions. And this is what we want, so go ahead and leave that and click Create Function. Our Lambda is now created, and it's going to give us a default Lambda here in the code. And what we want to do is come over to Actions, and we're going to upload a file from S3. And so now we need to get this S3 link URL in order to have our Lambda upload it from the S3 bucket we just created. So if we go back to S3, click on our Serverless FastAPI bucket, and click this checkbox, this window is going to pop up, and you can click Copy Path. And then you can come back and paste that into this box here. Next, we need to make sure that we update the handler, because by default, it's going to be pointing to Lambda function dot Lambda underscore handler, and ours isn't that. So let's go ahead and update that to what ours is, which should be app.main.handler. And this is saying find the app folder in the root of our project, and then find the main.py file, and then grab the handler that's in the main.py file and click save. Now we can test to make sure that our FastAPI Lambda is working correctly by running this test. It's going to prompt us to create a new test. Instead of hello world, we're going to search for API Gateway AWS Proxy, because that's what we're going to be implementing on the API Gateway. And then we're going to go ahead and give it a name. We need to update two things in order for this test to work properly. It's this path, saying path to resource, and ours is just going to be the root. And then we're going to check, instead of a post, we're going to just do a get. So now that we have those two updated, create our test, and we have our test selected. If we click test again, it's going to run. Our FastAPI Lambda is working correctly, and that is great. Last but not least, we need to set up API Gateway, and if you go under Networking and Content Delivery, you will find API Gateway, and it's going to give you a few options of the type of APIs you can create. Today we're going to be using the REST API, and we don't want the private. This will make it to where your API can only be accessed within VPC, within your AWS account, and so we want this to be able to be accessed outside of a VPC. So let's click build, and when you create an API, it's going to prompt you to be, if you want to import an existing API from Swagger documentation. We're not going to do this today. We're going to go ahead and just create our own API. So click new API and give it a name. I'm going to call this one Serverless FastAPI, and we're just going to leave this as regional create API. The first thing we need to create is our root proxy method. And so this will handle any requests to the root URL. So we're going to click Actions, Create Method. And here we're going to select any, because we want all requests, no matter if they're a get, a post, a patch, whatever, we're going to forward all requests to the Lambda proxy. So hit the check mark. Next, it's going to want to prompt you to set up your integration point. This is where API Gateway is going to do with the request that comes in. So we want to send it to a Lambda function, but we want to use the proxy integration. So we're going to check this. Then we want to tell it which Lambda function that we want to send it to, and that's going to be the one we just created, which is our Serverless FastAPI Lambda. And go ahead and click Save. And this is just prompting you, saying that it's going to automatically give API Gateway permission to invoke that Lambda function. So go ahead and click OK. Next, we need to handle any of the other subroutes. So if we wanted like /users or /posts, we want to be able to handle those requests as well. And so we're going to create another resource. So this time, click the Actions menu, click Create Resource. And then it's going to be the same thing. We want to configure the proxy. So we're going to check this box here, and this is going to automatically populate the resource name and the resource path. So we can go ahead and leave that as is. Click Create Resource. And then again, we're going to tell it which Lambda function that we want to forward the request to. So again, we're going to forward these to the same Lambda, and go ahead and leave everything else as default and click Save. Same thing, permissions, and you'll see now we have this API gateway set up to where it's taking in any request, and the integration request is sending it to this Lambda proxy. So the last thing we need to do is deploy the API so it's publicly accessible. So if you click the Actions menu again, come down to Deploy API, it's going to ask you what stage. We don't have one yet, so let's create one. Just going to call this one Dev, and click Deploy. Now it's going to take you to the stage dashboard and show you the URL to your API gateway. So if we go ahead and click on that, what do you know? We have Hello World here, and it is working. And by default, API gateway is going to tack on the name of the stage to your URL. So this is technically the root proxy that we are hitting. And so if we add /API/v1/users, now we're getting our get users endpoint that we also set up. So that's it. We've successfully created our API gateway, and we're routing all our requests to our FastAPI Lambda proxy. This was a way how I figured out how to get this to work. If you have any other cool ideas or tips, go ahead and let me know in the comments. If you like this video and you found it useful, do me a favor and leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more coding tutorials.